This is John McClain.
This is Paul Kuharsky from ESPN.com, Jerry White Sports.
Welcome to Two-Tone Crew right here on TitansReport.com.
Your source for Titans and pro football talk. This is the Two-Tone Crew on TitansReport.com.
Hello and welcome back once again to the Two-Tone Crew. We are live for episode 78. I'm John Boy, and joining me tonight, Titans Guru. Welcome back.
Hey.
And also alongside us tonight, the one and only Jamal.
Here I am, folks.
And we actually have another Josh joining us tonight. Josh Gunnels, welcome, your Two-Tone Crew debut.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Glad to have you on for sure. Well, just to start off, why don't you go ahead and tell everyone who you are and sort of where they can find you online. I know you've done a lot of writing for the Titans and for some Titans websites out there.
Well, currently I'm a blogger over at MCM, Music City Miracles. I think you guys know the site, and before that, I was at Titansized.com. I was the assistant editor over there for a little while, and kind of migrated my way over to Music City Miracles and been checking in with Titans Report. And that's about it, man. Just writing about the Titans here and there.
Gotcha. Well, glad to have you on the show. I know you're familiar with us somewhat, and those of you who are listening for the first time, this is a Titans podcast. We talk about news, we talk about upcoming matchups, and during the season, this is a weekly podcast. During the off season, it's not as frequent, but now that we are in preseason, we're back in the swing of things, and finally have some game action to talk about. And really, what's been dominating the conversation of late is the quarterback, and not Jake Locker, not Charlie Whitehurst, but Zach Mettenberger, the rookie, and he's really in the game against the Saints. That was the Titans' most recent preseason game. We actually lost that one 31-24, but Mettenberger played a large portion of that game thanks to Charlie Whitehurst going down with a pinky injury, and Mettenberger finished 20 of 25, 269, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, and I believe he lost a fumble as well. So, guys, this started out, as soon as we drafted him, he sort of had a groundswell of fan support, and we heard about him doing well in practices, and then he played decent in the first game, and now in the second game he played well again. So we have a really excited fan base for what he's shown, given that he was a 6th round pick coming off an ACL injury, and I think all of us. Even Jamal and myself kind of got caught up to some extent in that last game, just seeing, wow, I mean, this guy really has NFL traits. We heard about it and we read about it and seen it at LSU, but man, I mean, we saw it right there against New Orleans. We saw the good and the bad, but it's hard not to get excited when you see him do some of the things he did.
Yeah, I think the big thing for me, as I'm looking at, so game day, I was just sort of beside myself thinking, like, what the heck? Is this guy just, like, NFL ready? Do we have a quarterback controversy? What's going on? And, TitansReport.com, there are some people who are very, very high on Mettenberger, and there are some people, in general the same people, who are very, very down on Jake Locker, and so that adds to it puts a magnifying glass on it for me. And so I had to step back. I had to say, like, wait, what's going on? And I think, like, when I look at it, we can talk about Mettenberger and we can talk about Jake Locker, and I think we should be having both conversations. But really, the thing with Mettenberger that excites is they were able to wait in the draft. They were able to get a guy later in the draft, in the 6th round, where he had a couple of flags, and that caused him to drop. and then quarterbacks, the teams that needed quarterbacks were just all waiting, and so the Titans were able to kind of wait a little bit longer. And so you got really good value, but now you're seeing if those flags don't come up where, you had the injury, you had some other stuff,
right.
You're seeing a quarterback who you're saying, like, maybe he actually is potentially a viable starter in the league, and then he goes out and he plays pretty well. So you got really excited, but the fact of the matter is, I'd be remiss if I didn't very early on in this conversation say Jake Locker is going to get his chance to lead this team. This is maybe his last year, but he's going to have a very good chance. But yeah, barring injury. But I mean, he's going to. This is Jake Locker's team until it isn't. And so, like, to a certain extent, I think people got to dial back on Zach Mettenberger a little bit. He's exciting, and I think that but is what's missing a lot of times.
Josh Gunnels, you actually had an article you wrote today that touched on a lot of this, right?
Yeah, I did, and honestly, it was basically in response to I've been on a little bit of a hiatus on my writing, and I caught a couple of Jamal's tweets and ended up direct messaging him and checking out the Titans Report message board, started looking at all the forums, and I actually sent Jamal a tweet and said, is this like serious, or is this like people trolling? Like, what's going on? Because we all get in our own bubbles, right? I kind of wrote about this in the article today, and we all surround ourselves usually with like-minded individuals. We
right.
try and stay outside of our own little box, I'm sure, but being over at Music City Miracles and keeping my finger on the pulse of Titans fans through that venue, there was nowhere near the amount of Mettenberger hype on that website, or on a lot of other things. You got a couple of the phone calls on the local radio stations here and there, but I really didn't pay it much credence until I checked out your website and just saw it was like a runaway train, and if that was all I looked at, you would think that Mettenberger would be the starter this weekend in Atlanta. I mean, it was pretty over the top. So yeah, I wrote an article, and honestly, to tell you the truth, the article I wrote today, or that I put out today, was less about Mettenberger versus Locker from a statistical standpoint or a accuracy standpoint or a proven standpoint, and more from just the social phenomenon of why the second-string quarterback's the most popular guy on the team, and where the line gets drawn, and how much social media plays into this. These kind of hype trains that get going, the groupthink mentality, etc.
Well, I understand that to an extent, but then you have, just look, you have to admit, you're seeing talent, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Look, I'm not taking anything away from Mettenberger at all. When the Titans got him in the 6th round, I was actually pretty pumped. Let me say that to begin with, and I'll even back up a second before that as a caveat to this whole conversation. I am a fan of Jake Locker. I like him as a person. I like what he represents. He's the first person on the team since McNair that I felt like I could really, really root for, like really get behind. He's kind of got that heart on his sleeve. Even if he does get injured, at least he really tried while he was getting injured. But outside of that, I want what's best for the team. I'm a Titans fan first and foremost. And I'll tell you right now, if Mettenberger is the guy that gets us to the Super Bowl, see you, Jake Locker. I just, I think people are too quick to look to the next thing, and not let, finish the book you're reading. Let's get to the last chapter. Let's see what Locker's got. And just whether you like him or not, you can't say he's anything but unproven.
Right. So the interesting thing is, for me in this whole situation, is that it's not the backup quarterback who's the next best thing right now. It's the backup's backup.
That's right. Right. Yeah.
It's the new guy. It's the guy who. So Whitehurst has been in the league for a while, and so you kind of feel like you know who he is, and maybe that's not accurate, but I think that's probably why Mettenberger is the one getting hyped. I mean, that and the fact that you're seeing, I mean, Greg Cosell on Midday 180 was talking about, he's got great decision-making, quick decision-making, accuracy. He's good in a muddied pocket. He doesn't flinch. Like, there's a lot of qualities there that are really good. But it's also the fact that he's the new toy, right? And so there's just a lot of things going into this. And I think that's why, when you and I were writing back and forth on Twitter, we were talking about it. It's a potpourri of factors that are running this. But for me, I mean, I think you've listened to the podcast long enough, Gunnels, and obviously Josh and John Boy are well aware of this. Week 2 last year, I decided just myself, I'd seen enough of Locker to give up hope that he would, not to give up hope, to give up faith that he was a work in progress that would end up being a really good quarterback. My opinion now is it's quite likely that he ends up being a decent quarterback if he could stay healthy. But the fact that I think that's his ceiling now,
that's a huge question.
So for me, that's his ceiling. And then I'm seeing a guy who, I have to be honest, some of the things that Zach Mettenberger does really well are some of the things that when I look at Jake, I've always felt are missing. And so there's just like so much going on here.
And let me jump in here real quick. I just want to say I'm really glad you came on the show, Gunnels, because you guys are so right. I mean, so often we get trapped in that bubble of Titans fans that we associate with, and then you go on another website, or I think you said you're even talking to a family member or a friend or something like that in your article, and then you get something completely different. And it's like, wait, really? People are really feeling like this. So I think it's great that you're on and that we're able to discuss this. But yeah, in terms of the whole Locker Mettenberger thing, I'm right there with you, Jamal. It's just, well, everyone knows. I mean, we had that big debate last year, right around that time you're talking about. And as the year went by and as Locker got hurt once and then hurt twice, my sort of confidence in him really started to drop as well. And I've always maintained if he could stay healthy, I felt he could be become a above average quarterback. And I think now you're kind of feeling like maybe the best case scenario is just an average quarterback. And all the injuries keep piling up, and I'm to the point now where it's like, I don't know that I feel confident he can stay healthy. So there's always, we're getting really in the weeds when we talk about this, but really what it comes down to is when a guy comes in the league, he has a certain probability, if you will, of becoming the franchise quarterback. And for Jake, it probably started out relatively high. Some folks weren't high on him from the beginning, but I think most people were confident. And then each little thing, it just sort of chipped away and chipped away and chipped away. And for some people, they still feel confident, and others have really started to lose confidence. But as it relates to Mettenberger, you hit the nail on the head, Jamal, and it made it so obvious when you saw them almost back-to-back. There were those few plays with Whitehurst, but it's like, it was just, for me, and I know not everyone saw it this way, but for me, it just felt night and day. And again, Locker was going against number ones. It's a preseason game, and Mettenberger was going against some ones and then second stringers and third stringers. But you could just immediately see the pocket awareness. You could immediately see him scanning the entire field. So it's a crazy debate right now because it's just erupted with how well Mettenberger has played. And if he hadn't played, half this well, I don't think we'd even be having this discussion. And for the record, I'm right there with you, Jamal. Jake is absolutely getting his chance, and as positive as I feel about Mettenberger, in no way do I feel they should throw him out there week 1.
All but the most extreme fan understands that. No matter how well Mettenberger plays, he's not going to be the starter. Jake has earned the chance to be the starter. He's not playing poorly right now. But it comes back to exactly what you guys have said before. I mean, you cannot trust the guy to stay healthy. And to Gunnels' point, yes, he's a guy you absolutely pull for. I would love for somebody like Locker to be the face of this franchise and to play well in doing it.
And you're right, Josh, to his credit, I mean, he was 8 of 11 with a touchdown.
Yeah, I think that's getting lost in a lot of this, honestly. I mean, just to interject for a second, like, look, I'm not taking anything away from Mettenberger's play, but I do think that, some of his play is being, I mean, he didn't go out and throw, 90% completion, 4 touchdowns, 0 picks. I mean, it wasn't that good. It was good, and I'm happy for the guy, and I'm glad he's on the team. But it just gets exaggerated to the point where he's the second coming of Peyton Manning, and it's not like he played like that good. He had one should have been pick by Jean-Baptiste on like his 4th throw when he was playing against the twos. And
do that, you have to take away the pick that wasn't his fault that bounced off.
I'm not counting the pick that wasn't his fault.
I don't think they counted that as a pick, actually.
Yeah, actually, it didn't go down as a pick. It was like a fumble, right?
Should have been, I think, but
they
counted
that
as
the
a fumble.
And I'm not talking about the stat line. I'm just talking about like what you see, as he plays. He's got some stuff. He looked like a rookie, and he is a rookie, and that's fine. He looked like a good rookie. He looked like an absolute steal of a 6th-round pick. I'm not taking anything away from Mettenberger, but it seems like the people that are on the Mettenberger train, if we're going to talk about play, ignore Jake Locker's drive down, perfect back shoulder fade to Justin Hunter for a touchdown. I mean, isn't that what you want? I mean, he has progressed and done fabulous, and come off of his injury, learn the new system. He played great. There was he had one throw that got away from him. He had one throw out of the 11, and he only played 2 series. So who's to say, Locker wouldn't have done as well if he played more? We're going to find out a lot more this weekend at the Falcons when they both take halves, I'm sure. But you can't just say that, I don't. I guess my point is, I think the people that are on the pro Mettenberger side, they've precluded it to where it's Mettenberger or Locker. Like, they both can't be good. Locker stinks, and Mettenberger's going to be good.
Exactly.
And that's the
way
this
fan base goes. Yeah.
So here's a question. What do you guys? So I don't think we talked about on the podcast too much. Sort of the pretty in-depth review that Superhorn, I think Bill Ott, another's poster, a blogger over at Music City Miracles. He did a pretty in-depth review.
Excellent.
Going through his thoughts on Jake Locker, and I thought it was excellent. And I've been trying to talk him into coming on, but he's got a pretty young family and is just a busy man, so I totally understand that. But I wanted to go through it with him because the interesting thing to me is I think I interpreted it a little differently as I was reading through it. And I wonder what your impressions were as you were reading through it. Just what did you think as you were reading through it, other than, wow, this is really good, really well done?
Yeah, well, Superhorn, as he's known over at MCM, he is amazing. He's the resident X's and O's aficionado, and just the depth of his knowledge, formations, defense, offense, play calls. Part of me thinks that he's really just like a offensive coordinator for an NFL team and pretends to blog for the Titans. Like, I don't know. Like, he's pretty amazing, and that 4-part series was pretty astounding. And the final summary on page 4 was that by studying the tape, from what I took from everything he looked at, and I'm not going to speak for him, but it says on his final post on the series, even like against his original inclinations, just the okay, I've watched the games in the stands as an eye test, he's got a lot of hope for Locker and thinks he absolutely does have a high ceiling and can be a franchise quarterback, and that he's making those progressions. He just hasn't had the time on the field to do it.
And that's the biggest thing, in regardless of how good the guy is. If he doesn't play, that's like having that ace pitcher who's always getting injured. It's kind of the same thing. And and I guess he needs to work on that. I mean, that's a good thing about Weisenhunt's offense. He doesn't run the quarterback too much, and it's going to.
Yeah, but are you going to be ready to move on right now, or are you going to get where's your threshold? When are you ready to move on? Is it now? Is it at the end of this year? Yeah.
It's. I think Locker gets this year unless he gets injured and Mettenberger comes in. I hate to say he loses, any type of position over injury, but with his contract situation, if he gets injured, and say Whitehurst comes in and fails, and Mettenberger comes in, essentially talking about these two, then I can see us moving on at that point. But I think Locker gets this year.
Oh, I agree. Barring injury, though, I mean, you're not ready to pull the plug on the project yet.
You can't. Listen, you got Mettenberger in the 6th. That affords you the luxury of being able to sit the guy and let the guy learn and hopefully do this thing the right way, let him fully heal. I don't see any reason to rush him out there. There's no reason to be impatient. We have a capable quarterback.
Absolutely. Well, I agree. I agree completely.
So John Boy, when you read Superhorn's analysis, did you feel better about Locker or worse? Or ambivalent, sort of the same?
Pretty much the same as I had. I mean, because I know I've said it a lot. For me, it just keeps coming back to injuries. And if he can stay on the field, I'm confident in what I've seen that he could put it together consistently, because I think it was Cyrus or one of the other posters over on Titans Report said basically Locker, he doesn't have a lot of tape because of the injuries, but he has enough to where you can pretty much on either side, you can find what you want. You can find him making a back shoulder throw. You can find him, firing a pass across the middle. I mean, you can find him not making a correct read and getting sacked.
Throwing it high.
Right. You can find all these things if you go through every single play. But it just, I mean, I feel like it's day one again. It was consistency. Can he do this consistently? Can he maintain what we saw in the Jets' first half and on the game-winning drive for San Diego? And almost every time the answer's been no, but it's not been because of ability, it's been because of injury.
Yeah.
so often.
So in that case, you guys tell me what I'm maybe just looking at differently than you. Maybe not wrong, but different, because I read his analysis, and as I was going through it, it was like, I've seen some people on TitansReport.com having conversations with Superhorn, because he does post on TitansReport.com as well, and they were having conversations about it, and they were insinuating maybe he was cherry-picking plays, and I don't think that's true. There is an element of, you can find one or two plays as a consistency, and that's where your belief in the author is that since he looked at all of them, that he has a good overall feel for this, right? So in that way, I don't think he's cherry-picking plays, but I feel like as I was going through it, the caveats that he was putting on all the positives, it was he was saying, if it's his first read, he'll make an accurate pass. Okay, well, that's not good enough. If the read is really clear, he'll make a really okay. I mean, as I was reading through it, I was thinking, so you're basically got a quarterback, and I think to a great extent this is evidenced in how they tried to design the offense last year and how the season started. You've got a quarterback, if you keep it simple, he's all right. And that's just not good enough for me. But for Superhorn, he was looking at it, if you keep it simple, he's all right. And then he's looking at it, I think, and maybe this is where I'm not on the same page as him, where he was projecting and saying, well, if he continues to improve, then it's not as limited. But I was thinking, the times where he's good are the exact things that defenses are trying to take away. Like, what does a defense not want to let you do? Hit your first read. Make your read clear. Make it easy. I mean, these are all the things that defenses aren't letting you do. So for me, I was reading through it, and it was just confirming for me. I was like, yeah, these are all the reasons why I haven't been happy.
I think, Jamal, just, maybe to what you're just saying, I get what you're saying there, but I think you might overestimate the number of quarterbacks that's not the case for in the NFL. So like, obviously your Peyton Mannings, your Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, I mean, you got your 5 elite guys, Tom Brady, whatever, whoever, name your top 5, 6, right? And even the ones that have been in a pro-style offense for a long time and are veterans in the league, even Matt Hasselbeck when or the resurgent, Kerry Collins when he was here in our 13-3 year. Like, you take guys like that have been around for a long time, been in a lot of systems and done it, then yeah, they get the extra. They're thinking the 4 moves ahead in chess, right? They know they're trying to outdo what you're trying to outdo because you're trying to outdo that. But I think you overestimate the number of quarterbacks, especially young quarterbacks. That's what the coach's job is. That's what the coordinator's job is to keep it simple for them. There's just I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. The things I didn't take it as a bad thing like you did. The things that you read on Superhorn's post.
That's a good point because it makes me think of guys like Colin Kaepernick who just clearly have issues, to where, you clearly see weaknesses in his game, but they're able to build the offense around him so much that he just destroyed us last year, and they've been in the NFC Championship, 2 or 3 years in a row now.
Absolutely.
And even Russell Wilson to an extent, and he's getting better every year, and they won the Super Bowl. But even him to an extent, I feel he's somewhat limited compared to those other guys you mentioned.
They haven't thrown the entire playbook at Russell Wilson,
right,
or Colin Kaepernick, or any of those guys. It just hasn't happened yet, and they're going to learn more and more every year. And I think I think that speaks to even more of part of the hiccup in Locker's progress. He's been through, 3 offensive coordinators now?
Yeah.
And the first one was, I almost said Carson Palmer, the old man.
Chris Palmer, yeah.
Chris Palmer, who, ran the old Giants offense that Eli Manning learned, and it was the most convoluted,
I do remember us talking about that.
system that there was. I mean, it's a total nightmare to throw Jake Locker into, and that's fine. Maybe you say he should have been able to get all that at once, but I mean, that's asking a lot.
And then you go to Loggins, who's a first year.
You give him Loggins, and then now he's on his. I mean, so that's what you want. It's going to have to be simple at first, and you just want to see progression and a grasp, and then he can take the next step. But it's like baby steps. You gotta take one step before you can run.
Do you get the impression that Ken Wisenhunt is going to limit his offense so that Jake can slowly, gradually take it over?
No, I don't. I think Ken,
I don't either.
I think Wisenhunt runs his deal, and I don't think he's going to keep it simple for him, and it's going to be sink or swim for Jake.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, I also think that's exactly what's going to happen on defense. That was another thing that Greg Cosell said, and I haven't followed Horton's defenses closely over the years, but in general what he said is he installs his whole defense and he will live with the first 4 or 5 weeks. And so I think as we start wanting to hit the panic button possibly at the beginning of the season with the defense, keep this in mind, that he will install his whole defense and he will say, first 4 or 5 weeks we might not be good, but then we'll be a step ahead by the mid-season point.
Yeah.
I get the impression that Jake Locker is not going to get the benefit of someone trying to tailor the offense to him to the same degree that Loggins did. I mean, you can say he was a first-year offense coordinator, and that's true, but, I mean, they really tried to put Jake in a situation where he wasn't asked to do as much and where he could gradually turn into more.
Well, and they were doing a good job with it. Even Cosell said so.
Yeah, they were doing a pretty good job with it. So I guess for me, I just continue to look at it, and I'm like, what about the situation this year seems like it will be good for these things that we meaning Superhorn, if we take these as truths, that reads have to be clear for him to be accurate, that his first read, he doesn't get through reads really well, that sort of thing. If that's what he needs, is he going to get that this year? I don't think so. And so then I'm like, well, okay, so that didn't make me feel any better. So I mean, that's just where I'm coming at it from. And I guess also, I mean, as time goes on, I think that I fell into the trap. So this is a what's the midday 180 thing? True Confessions, or I confess, whatever. I confess that I used to think mobile quarterbacks was the future of the NFL, and I've decided that's bunk. I think the future of the NFL is the same as it's always been, which is the quarterback who can read the defense, who can think quickly, and has a nimble mind and is able to get through his reads and all those things. That's the quarterback of the future. And if Jake isn't there now, which I don't think he is, then I think that he's going to struggle in this offense. Even with, by the way, Justin Hunter, I think had another good sign that he's progressing and may actually be a legitimate threat this year. In the second preseason game, he had 2 touchdowns.
Not just another guy.
Yeah, not just another guy in the second preseason.
A jag, yeah. Well, look, you've got very valid concerns. None of those are wrong. I do. kind of like I think you're worried a little too much about how simple they used to keep or should keep the offense for Jake. The multiple reads thing, I think you might overestimate the number of times a quarterback gets to his third read. It's usually a 1-2 dump or hot read. I mean, the NFL's so fast, and guys are coming off the edge so fast. A lot of times you don't even get to your first read. You're throwing to your hot route half the time. I mean, I'd probably say 30-35% of the time they're throwing to the hot route. Then the other 30-35% of the time they're throwing to their first read. And then you got another 30% of the time where it's a busted play, a run, or whatever. So, I mean, I think the cycling through your reads, climbing the pocket stuff, I'm not saying it's not important. You just can't make that the end-all and be-all and overemphasize that. Because you're really talking about your Peyton Mannings and your Aaron Rodgers that are, looking off safeties, watching the cornerback line up with the inside shade on the left hip so he knows he's going to throw to the slot receiver on the comeback who's also on the same page with him because they winked at each other.
And I think to highlight, or maybe to just put in a different light, Jamal's concern is that through two preseason games, it seems that Mettenberger is a little bit of the antithesis of Jake Locker. Would you agree with that, Jamal? Is that kind of what we were getting at earlier?
Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent. I guess how I would say it is some of my biggest concerns with Locker seem to be things that aren't necessarily concerns with Mettenberger, which does not mean that he doesn't have weaknesses.
Right, absolutely.
And maybe this is one of the reasons why people are so excited about Mettenberger is because there's that focus on those specific qualities. And then when we see a quarterback who doesn't have those problems, we say, oh, he's great. And maybe that's not true. Maybe he has his own other issues beyond just being a rookie who would need to grow into the position. But yeah, for me, I mean, sort of that quick decision-making, accuracy, good in a muddied pocket, these are things that I have never felt great with Jake on. I've always felt like he is a workman quarterback. He puts the work in. But I always felt like you can see that when he plays, where it's just not quite as quick. It's just not quite as smooth. And so that's always kind of bugged me with him. And so, yeah, I would say the biggest concerns with Locker aren't the same concerns with Mettenberger.
Yeah.
And then he's also not mobile.
For me, it just, I don't know. We talked about the whole bubble thing earlier, and a lot of times I try to watch a game without looking at Titans Report because I don't want it to influence the way I'm thinking. And I try to stay off Twitter too. I don't always manage to do that, but I try to. And when I was watching Mettenberger, you just get this sense of calm when he's in the pocket. I mean, in some cases to his detriment because he holds the ball too long at times. But it was just when Locker's in there, I kind of get the sense of, this erratic sense that he's almost panicking, and maybe it goes back to the injuries, who knows. But with Mettenberger, I just absolutely feel like the way he shifts and moves around the pocket, it just felt very natural to me to watch.
Well, and he's always had, I think Jake, his athleticism has always made up for some of those other things. I mean, he doesn't have to be as great in the pocket to be as good or better of a quarterback, but those are the things that at least for me, I was noticing a lot.
Well, I think go ahead, Gunnels.
Well, I was going to say, I think you guys are very right. And look, I mean, you kind of said earlier, John Boy, you can get lost in the weeds on this.
Yeah, really, we could go all night, I think.
When it comes back down to it, though, like, in part of what I wrote today and the point of what I wrote today goes back to what you said earlier. Yes, so I looked at Titans Report and saw this onslaught of Mettenberger praise that I hadn't seen before anywhere else, and I was like, really? Like, because I thought he played great. I thought he looked good for a rookie. I was very excited about what he did, but it wasn't like that good, and and that was just me personally. And then, like you said, I went to my parents' house, and my stepfather hit me with he thinks Mettenberger should start week 1. And I just about fell out of the chair and asked where the beer was. I didn't even know what to say. I was just like, now I will say this.
Did you ask if he posts on Titans Report?
No, but
what's his screen name?
Well, I tell you this: the last year in the preseason, he also told me that Fitzpatrick was going to win the starting job over Locker. So take that for what it's worth.
Gotcha.
Did you say that was your father or father-in-law?
Stepfather. So,
yeah, see?
Anyways, the point is, I think it is good to get outside of your bubble. It is interesting, like you said, trying to watch the games, not look at Twitter, not look at Titans Report, not look at Music City Miracles, and just kind of, get your own opinions, get outside of your own box, and I mean that's really what it's all about. And it's a good thing people do disagree.
Yeah.
And another thing, it's not about Locker being bad and Mettenberger being good, or Mettenberger being bad and the things he did bad and the things Locker did good. I mean, wouldn't it be great for once if the Titans had two good quarterbacks? I mean, why can't we get behind both of them? Get excited for both of them. I mean, we could have a Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers situation on our hand.
Yep.
And instead, people are like warring over which one is better. I mean, we might actually have two really good quarterbacks for the first time since I can remember.
I was going to say, when I read your article, and even when you first started talking, it's like, how sad is it that you have to say you're a fan of Jake Locker? I mean, if we're a fan of the team, we should all be fans of Jake Locker, and as long as he's on this team.
Was it Vince Young that did this? And that's kind of what I was talking about.
That's a good point.
Was it Vince Young that did this to us? Yeah, it's a fabulous point. And that's what it's all. Do other teams go through this? Like, where's the line where the fan base gets divided so dramatically over who the quarterback should be?
Let's just blame Vince.
Vince isn't a bad target. We could also blame Fisher. I don't know.
Yeah. No, but that's a good point, because I think that forever, especially with our generation, we're all kind of around the same age. For those who were really paying attention to the Titans at that time, it's after McNair. He'd been the quarterback since the team moved to Tennessee. He was the only one we'd ever known. And then we're trying to find a guy to replace him. And it was just so scrutinized. And because of the way it ended, I think it put it even in just an even greater light for our quarterback position, as people are just so starved to find the right guy. And I think that's part of what you were getting at there. So we can probably go ahead and kind of wrap up the Locker Mettenberger discussion. I personally, I thought that was by far the most interesting discussion. But are you going to be able to stay with us a while, Gunnels, or do you need to go ahead and hop off?
About 10 more minutes and I can bail. I'll ask you guys something.
Yeah, go ahead.
Before I leave, how worried are you about the defense? Because
that's where I was going.
That's my concern, right? I'm not worried about the quarterback situation at all. I think we may have two great ones, whatever. My concern is the defense, and what it boils down to for me is something I heard some guys, I think it might have been Wycheck and some guys talking about on the radio. My concern is if you go from a 4-3 to a 3-4, right? Let's forget about personnel and what they're good for. But this isn't a standard 2-gap Dick LeBeau 3-4. This is Ray Horton's 1-gap, single gap 3-4, right? So Jarrell Casey's still playing the 3 technique just like he did in the 4-3, right? So you really haven't. So if you go to a 4-3 to a 3-4 with a 1-gap, and this is something that someone like Superhorn or someone better, more knowledgeable about the X's and O's will have to answer. I'm not smart enough to know this. But if you play a 1-gap 3-4, what's the difference between that and a 4-3 other than that you space your guys out and you get gashed by the run game, which is kind of what I think we're seeing. So I'm a little concerned by the 1-gap 3-4 that we're setting ourselves up with right here.
Well, even not just even the run, but backup quarterbacks 2 weeks in a row have just shredded us early on, and we're not getting any pass rush at all, which I feel like we've been saying that for I don't know how many. Ever since we've been doing this podcast, we've been saying that, but just not generating any pass rush at all. And, of course, again, as we like to say so often, it is preseason, so obviously they're not showing everything that they have right now. But I agree 100%. It's an enormous concern, given that, as I think Jamal pointed out last week, our defense really carried us through a lot of last year and kept us in a lot of games. So I don't know. I don't know what it is. I'm like you. I'm not much of an X's and O's break everything down, but I'm very concerned about it, and I don't know how fast they can get it turned around. But if you're looking for a bright spot, maybe you say that they're getting all the kinks worked out in the preseason. Hopefully by week 1 they're ready to go, but I'm not feeling great about it.
Well, I think that I've been outspoken about my lack of faith in the linebackers in the past, so this won't come as a surprise. But I think that linebackers are a major weakness. Other than that, I'm not entirely concerned. I absolutely am falling into, at least with the defense, there's a couple of caveats that I think are, I guess, high in my list of reasons why I'm not concerned, and those caveats are: one, it's the preseason, and I think that with a defensive coordinator, especially who is known for he's going to blitz all the bleeping time, and it's just going to totally change the way that quarterbacks are having to react to this defense. I think that there is just a ton that we haven't shown, and so I don't think this is representative at all. But then beyond that, I think that once we get into the regular season, because of what I mentioned before, that theory that Ray Horton says, here's the whole defense, you're going to run the whole thing, and you sink or swim, and eventually you'll learn to swim, even if the first couple games we sink. For me, I just feel like, okay, fine, I'm not worried. It will impact the first couple of games, but as the season goes, I think the defense is going to be fine. I look at it and I say that the personnel has not dramatically changed. You've only lost a couple of key guys. A lot of the guys are going to be used a little differently, and you got some guys kind of changing position, things like that. But overall, I think there's enough talent on this defense. It's just a matter of getting used to the system. And so for me, I'm not too concerned. But that doesn't mean I think they're going to be great out the gate.
Yeah, well, you really, like you said, you really only did lose one key guy, and that's Altron Werner. And that's the one position group that has me, I guess, the most concerned would be, like, can Sensabaugh step up, play the outside, move inside to the nickel, and let Bleedy Ray step outside in 3, or whoever wins the outside job. That's still up for debate.
There was an interesting post. There's an interesting post on that Horton actually might have a preference to have the starting outside cornerback step into the nickel and somebody else play that role. And so it's not even necessarily that the nickel cornerback is going to be sort of the third guy. It might be the second guy going to be the nickel quarterback.
I think that's absolutely fine. I thought that's what they were going to do last year with Werner. I thought Werner was going to start outside and move. He's so good in the nickel that I thought he would move in when they're, the nickel is almost like the new base package now. I mean, teams play with 3 wide receivers, or they split their tight end out so much. The nickel is like forget 3-4, 4-3, 2-5, whatever. You're in nickel more than anything, really.
Now you sound like Oilerman from TitansReport.com.
Oh, well, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Depends on who you talk to.
Exactly.
But position group wise, there's the concern. But like you said, that's a good thing to talk people off the ledge, Jamal. I'm surprised, as cynical as you are, that you're not concerned about something.
Last year, and even the year before, it's interesting actually. Now that I think about it. 2 years ago, I was saying the defense wasn't nearly as bad, and that's the year that they gave up so many points. I was saying the defense is getting killed by the offense. We all said
they were close. They were so close.
So I was saying that the offense was killing the defense, and then last year when the defense played well, especially out the gate, I was saying, see, I told you. So for whatever reason, I guess I'm not quite as cynical on the defense. I can step it up. I'll do some bitter tweeting on the defense. Do some bitter tweeting.
Bottom line is, like you said, it's preseason, right? So, right. I mean, Titans, both Locker and Mettenberger, moved the ball pretty dang well against the Saints. Do you think all their fans are freaking out about their defense right now? Or
they might be. I don't know if the Saints have historically had a very good defense.
I don't think they care as long as Drew Brees plays. So.
Yeah.
Hey guys, look, I appreciate you for having me on tonight. I've got a jet. But it was really nice talking to somebody on the other side of the fence, and hopefully we can do it a little more often.
Absolutely. And go ahead one more time and let folks know where they can find you before you hop off here.
Yeah, man. You can catch my stuff and a lot of other good stuff like Superhorn and Jordan Churchill and some other good bloggers over at musiccitymiracles.com.
Thank you very much, Josh. Have a good night.
All right. Thank you, guys.
All right. So, Jamal,
yes,
let's
sir.
move to one area. I think we lost Guru, by the way.
We did lose Guru.
So
he texted me WTF. So hide your children. I'll tell you what that means. No.
Not a good sign. So we will try and carry this out. Probably don't have much left to go anyway, but we might just have some dead air at the end because I think Josh is the one who has to hang up the call. But one area.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see how that goes. We won't have
maybe
an
if we
outro.
all cancel out of this. Yeah. Maybe once we all cancel out of this, it'll just go away.
Yeah.
When we stop talking, you are free to move about the plane.
Let's talk about an area we were both concerned with last week, the kicking battle. Travis Coons nailed a 50-yarder, and he actually nailed a 45-yarder right before that, and they had the penalty. And, it was just 2 kicks, of course, and then he made all his extra points, but I thought he looked solid. And the other guy, is it Bonani?
Bonana?
Yeah, he handled the kickoff
Banana
duties.
Fana-Fofani.
Which I'm not sure what they're trying to figure out really there, because from everything that Wyatt's been tweeting, it sounds like Coons has just been really the more accurate kicker all camp.